A group of men stands in the limestone courtyard of the Jerusalem temple. Their sandals dusty from the city streets. A silver denarius is pulled out and placed in his palm. The metal is heavy. Still warm from the man's pocket, Jesus pays the tax. But he does it by showing he is Lord over the very sea that Capernaum depends on for survival. The silver gleams in the wet mouth of the fish. The debt is settled without a single coin coming from human hands. But not all silver in the biblical text is meant to pay a tax. Some silver is counted out in the dark to buy a man. Look at the accounting ledgers of the ancient Mediterranean world. Everything has a price. Wheat, oil, land, and human beings. All have established market values written on parchment and papyrus. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26, a man named Judas walks into the presence of the chief priests and asks a strictly economic question. "What will you give me if I deliver him over to you?" They count out 30 pieces of silver. The Greek word Matthew uses is argyrion. It is a broad term for silver currency. But in this specific context, historians believe these are Tyrian shekels. These were heavy coins, thick with silver content, required for all temple transactions. They carried the image of the Phoenician god Melkart on one side, and a soaring eagle on the other. You can imagine the heavy, metallic clink as each coin drops onto the wooden table. Jesus holds it up in the harsh Judean sunlight. He looks at the profile stamped into the silver, then asks a second question. You can hear the sound echoing in the stone chamber. 30 sharp impacts, 30 heavy discs swept into a leather pouch. But the number 30 is the detail that matters. If you search the ancient Hebrew law codes, specifically Exodus chapter 21, you will find a ledger of damages for personal property. The law states that if a man's ox gets loose and gores a neighbor's slave to death, the owner of the ox must compensate the master for the loss of his property. The exact restitution required by the law is 30 shekels of silver. The amount Judas accepts is not a random negotiation. It is a theological insult. The chief priests are not just paying a bounty for a fugitive, they are appraising the rabbi from Nazareth. By offering exactly 30 pieces of silver, the religious elites are officially valuing the Son of God at the exact market price of a gored, lifeless slave. They are making a statement about his worth, wrapping their disdain in the cold, calculated language of ancient property law. And they are completely unaware that they are acting out a script written centuries earlier. Hundreds of years before this night, the prophet Zechariah performed a dramatic, prophetic parable. He asked the corrupt leaders of Israel for his wages as a shepherd. They paid him 30 pieces of silver. The prophet sarcastically calls it a lordly price, the magnificent sum at which they valued him. Whose image is this, and whose inscription? They answer, Caesar's. Every time a coin flashes in the biblical text, something shifts. Before God commands him to throw the metal onto the floor of the temple, Judas accepts the valuation. He takes the heavy leather pouch. He walks out into the cool night air to find a quiet place to hand over his friend. We are a species obsessed with assigning worth to human lives, constantly weighing our relationships against our ledgers. The ancient world used silver to measure the value of a man, and the men running the temple decided Jesus was worth nothing more than damaged property. But the temple treasury is about to receive a very different kind of deposit. A deposit that involves almost no metal at all, dropped by a person who legally owns nothing. Jesus is sitting in the court of the women, leaning his back against the cool limestone. He is watching the treasury. There are 13 collection receptacles lined up against the wall, shaped like inverted bronze trumpets. When a wealthy merchant or a Pharisee approaches, he doesn't just quietly place his offering inside. He throws heavy silver pieces down the wide brass funnels. You can hear the metal clattering loudly all the way down, echoing across the stone courtyard. The architecture is designed to amplify the sound of the drop. A woman sweeps her dirt floor in the dark for a single lost drachma. A disciple pulls a wet, thrashing fish from the Sea of Galilee. It is a public broadcast of righteousness. Then, a woman walks up to the brass funnel. She is a widow. In the first-century Judean economy, that means she is practically a ghost. She has no husband to advocate for her, no legal protection, no safety net. She raises her hand over the opening. She drops 2 coins. There is no loud clatter, just a faint, hollow tick against the metal, a sound completely swallowed by the noise of the crowd. Mark chapter 12 tells us they are 2 lepta. The Greek word lepton comes from the verb lepo, which means to peel off the bark of a tree. A lepton is not even a proper coin in the way we think of one. It is a peeling. It is a shaving of bronze, so thin and light it barely registers on a merchant's scale. It is the absolute smallest unit of currency in circulation. It is rough, uneven, and tarnished. It takes 64 of these paper-thin flakes to equal 1 single day of labor. She drops 2 of them into the dark. Jesus does not let the moment pass. He calls his disciples over. He points to the woman walking away in her worn robes, and pries open its jaws to find a stater. A widow drops 2 nearly weightless flakes of copper into a bronze treasury box. He tells them that she put in more than everyone else. The rich gave out of their surplus. They dropped their silver, but their lives did not change. Their security remained intact. Their evening meals were still guaranteed. She gave out of her poverty. She put in everything she had to live on. The 2 copper flakes were not a percentage. They were a totality. She is handing over her evening meal. She is handing over her safety. She is handing over her only buffer against starvation. This is not a financial contribution. It is a beautiful, terrifying surrender. Rome measures value by weight. The temple measures value by volume. But the king, sitting against the limestone wall, measures value by what is left behind in the hand of the giver. And her hands are completely empty. It is a moment that echoes across 2,000 years, demanding we look at our own ledgers. Because the copper shavings falling into the dark treasury box expose a transactional illusion that most of us are still actively participating in today. If you are in a season where you feel exhausted by your own spiritual performance, you are likely trapped in a Roman economy without even realizing it. You sit in the silence of your car, your hands gripped tight on the steering wheel, running the math of your own failures, making a sound so faint nobody else hears it. A trusted friend counts out 30 heavy pieces of silver on a table. You weigh your good days against your bad days. You treat your prayers, your service, and your morality like heavy Tyrian shekels. You think that if you pile enough of them onto the altar, you will finally purchase God's approval. You listen for the loud clatter of your own righteousness falling into the brass funnel. Terrified that you do not have enough silver to cover your accumulating debt, this is the transactional illusion. We have dragged the economics of the empire into the sanctuary. You believe that God operates like a first-century money changer. You picture him sitting behind a heavy wooden table, sliding wooden beads on an abacus, adjusting the exchange rates of his grace based on your daily behavior. You think he demands exact change before he will intervene in your life. When disaster strikes, your first thought is that your account is overdrawn, that you didn't drop enough into the treasury to buy his protection. But the system you are participating in does not belong to God. Your faith is not a currency. It is a surrender. The king who minted you does not require you to buy back the access he freely gave you. Remember the icon. You do not have to purchase your worth in the courtyard of a God who already stamped his image onto your very dust. The exact price of a gored slave. Same object again and again. Every time money changes hands in these texts, the empire tells you that you are only worth what you can produce, what you can earn, what you can pay. Jesus tells you that your value was settled at creation. He does not want a percentage of your productivity. He wants your empty hands. If you feel like you are standing in front of the treasury right now with nothing left but 2 tarnished, paper-thin flakes of copper, if your energy is gone and your spiritual ledger is entirely bankrupt, you are not failing. You are in the exact position where the kingdom actually begins. The moment you stop trying to buy your way into grace is the moment you finally experience it. Let the religious elites keep dropping their heavy silver down the funnels to feel secure. The empty hands of the widow hold more weight in heaven than all the gold in Rome. But there is one final coin transaction in the biblical narrative, and it is an exchange that ends in absolute horror. With 30 heavy pieces of silver scattered across a cold limestone floor, a Roman guard tightens a rough leather strap around a rabbi's wrists. The trial is over. The verdict is death. Judas stands in the shadows of the city courtyard. He watches the soldiers lead his friend away. He sees the bruised face. Something much deeper than commerce is happening. Most people assume the coins in the Bible are just economic details. Measurements of value. He feels the terrible, crushing weight of the leather pouch at his hip. He thought he was forcing a political revolution. He thought the rabbi would call down fire. He thought the kingdom would finally begin. He was wrong. The pouch does not feel like wealth anymore. It feels like a tombstone. He runs back to the temple. He finds the chief priests. He finds the elders. He pulls out the pouch. His voice cracks in the heavy air. "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." The priests do not care. They look at his shaking hands. They look at the leather pouch. Their faces are stone. "What is that to us? See to it yourself." They refuse the transaction. The deal is closed. The contract is sealed. They will not take the silver back into their clean, holy treasury. Judas steps into the sanctuary. He unties the leather string. He raises his arm. He throws the money. Listen to the violent clash of metal hitting limestone. 30 heavy silver shekels hit the cold temple floor. They bounce. They spin. They scatter across the polished stone. The ringing sound echoes through the massive colonnades. Sharp and piercing. Historical background noise to tell us how much a day's labor was worth, or how the temple tax worked. And on the surface, they do function that way. It is the sound of a man's soul tearing apart. He turns. He runs into the dark to find a tree. The priests walk over to the scattered silver. They bend down. They pick up the coins. One by one. The metal is tainted now. It carries a stain they cannot wash off. They look at the money. They make a ruling. It is not lawful to put them into the treasury. Since it is blood money, this is not religious purity. It is blinding hypocrisy. They are the ones who paid the blood money. They are the ones who valued the Son of God at the price of a dead slave. But now they refuse to let the metal touch their sacred ledgers. They take the 30 pieces. They buy a potter's field. They buy a graveyard for foreigners. The prophet Zechariah's script is finished. The lordly price has been thrown into the house of the Lord, and it buys a field of dirt and clay. The silver does not buy a kingdom. It buys a cemetery. But the story of currency in this book does not end in a graveyard, because there is a final transaction happening just outside the city walls. And it rewrites the economy of the universe forever. But if you look closer at the metal itself, at whose face is stamped on it, at where it is dropped, and who picks it up. A Roman denarius is held up in the Judean sunlight, and the image of God and humanity is reclaimed from the empire. A silver drachma is lost in the pitch-black shadows, and a woman tears apart her own house to find it. A silver stater is pulled from the wet jaws of a fish, and the King of Heaven pays a tax he does not owe. 30 pieces of silver are counted out on a wooden table, and the Son of God is valued at the exact price of a dead slave. 2 tarnished flakes of copper are dropped into a brass funnel, and an empty-handed widow outgives the wealthiest men in Jerusalem. A pouch of blood money is hurled across a limestone floor, and the religious elites purchase a graveyard for strangers. And on a Roman cross, just outside the city walls, the final debt of humanity is canceled without a single piece of metal changing hands. Same currency. Same object. One entirely different economy. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the dirt floor, the woman sweeping in the dark. She does not just casually look for the silver. She strikes a flint. She lights a clay lamp. She gets on her hands and knees in the dust. She drags the rough twigs across the packed earth. They are holding a piece of metal. They are not here to buy doves. They are not here to pay a vow. You start to realize something the economic reading completely misses. The coin is not a measurement of wealth, sifting through the dirt with her bare fingers. And she refuses to stop until she recovers what belongs to her. If you are in a season where you feel lost in the dark, where you feel like you have slipped through the cracks of a system that only measures your worth by what you can produce. You need to listen closely. Listen for the scrape of the broom. Your value is not a market rate. It is an inherent identity. You are not a forgotten ledger entry. You are the prized silver. And the one who minted you is tearing apart the house to bring you back. And may the God who stamped his own image into your dust remind you today that you never have to buy his love because your worth was settled before you took your first breath. If this reached something in you, subscribe. Leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who is exhausted by trying to earn their way into grace. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. It is a declaration of allegiance. To see the actual transaction taking place, you have to look at the money itself. You have to start with the specific piece of propaganda sitting in the pockets of the men trying to kill him. Today, a coin is purchasing power. A digital blip, a number on a screen. It buys bread. It pays rent. It settles accounts. It is completely neutral. But in the first century Mediterranean basin, a coin is never neutral. A coin is a billboard. A coin is a newspaper. A coin is a threat. How does a Roman emperor project his supremacy across 1 million square miles of conquered dirt? He cannot put a garrison in every village. He cannot build a statue on every street corner. So he mints his presence. He extracts tons of silver from Spanish mines. Slaves melt it down. They pour it into blanks. A blacksmith strikes it with a heavy iron die. The emperor stamps his face into the silver and drops it into the economy. The cold metal passes from the legionary to the merchant, from the merchant to the farmer, from the farmer to the tax collector. You feel its weight in your palm. They are here to spring a trap that has been carefully engineered to end a man's life. You trace the profile with your thumb when you buy your grain. Every time a Roman coin changes hands, the empire asserts its dominance. Look at the specific denarius Jesus holds in the temple. It was minted by Tiberius Caesar. The front displays his profile in sharp relief. A laurel wreath rests on his head. The Latin letters curving around the edge are not just an identification. They are a theology. Tiberius Caesar, worshipful son of the divine Augustus. The back shows a woman sitting on a throne. She holds a scepter of authority and an olive branch of peace. The text reads, High Priest. The silver disc is not just currency. It is a portable idol. It claims that Caesar is the son of a god. It claims that Rome is the ultimate mediator between heaven and earth. And every devout Jewish man trying to trap Jesus is carrying this blasphemy in his pocket. They hate the Romans. They pray for deliverance. But they need the emperor's metal to survive the emperor's world. Jesus forces them to pull it out of their own robes in the middle of the temple. He exposes the compromise before he even speaks. Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's. Give it back. It has his face on it. It belongs to his system. Let him have his metal. But the trap snaps shut on the second half of the sentence. The air is thick with the smell of roasting meat from the morning sacrifices and the low hum of thousands of pilgrims. And to God the things that are God's. If the coin belongs to the emperor because it bears the emperor's image, what belongs to God? You have to ask what bears the image of God. The answer upends the entire spiritual economy. But before we get to the word that unlocks that image, we have to look at another piece of silver. A coin that is not held up in the harsh sunlight of a public courtyard, but lost in the pitch-black shadows of a dirt floor. The sun goes down in a first-century Palestinian village. The house is small, built of rough stone and mud. The floor is packed earth, uneven and prone to swallowing small objects. The windows are nothing more than narrow slits designed to keep out the crushing midday heat. When the sun sets, the darkness inside is absolute. A woman stands in the center of the room. She has 10 silver drachmas. Now she has 9, to a Roman senator. A single drachma is pocket change. To this woman, it is everything. It is a full day's wages for a field worker. It is bread for the week. In many ancient Near Eastern cultures, a dowry of 10 silver coins is worn as a headdress, woven into the hair, a woman's total financial independence. Her only safety net against sudden widowhood or disaster. Losing it is not an inconvenience. It is a crisis. The temple courtyard is a symphony of commerce. You can hear the bleating of sheep, the sharp clatter of Tyrian shekels hitting wooden tables. She does not shrug off the loss. She does not wait for morning. She strikes flint. She lights a small clay lamp. The smell of burning olive oil fills the cramped space. She picks up a broom of bound twigs. She bends down. She begins to sweep. Hear the rough scrape of the twigs against the packed dirt. Watch the flickering amber light cast long. Frantic shadows on the stone walls. Feel the dust rising into the heavy air, catching in her throat as she moves on her hands and knees. She sweeps the corners. She sweeps around the heavy stone water jars. She sifts through the loose earth with her bare fingers. Jesus tells this story to a crowd of religious elites who are openly disgusted that he is eating with tax collectors and sinners. They see the broken people of their society as disposable, unclean, bad investments. To them, the outcasts are not worth the effort of recovery. Jesus answers their disgust with the scrape of a peasant woman's broom. This is not a story about careless accounting. It is a story about relentless pursuit. The woman does not write off the missing silver, has a reasonable margin of error. She turns the house upside down. She tears apart her own living space. And when the flame finally catches, the silver glint of the metal in the dirt, she does not quietly put it away in a jar. She runs into the narrow street, the shouts of money changers negotiating exchange rates. This is the financial beating heart of Judea. And into this sacred space, they bring a Roman coin. She calls her neighbors. "Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I had lost." In the economy of the Roman Empire, a single drachma is easily replaced. The mint stamps thousands a day. But in the economy of this woman's house, the coin is irreplaceable. Its value is not determined by the market rate. Its value is determined by the one who refuses to stop searching for it. But to truly understand why the coin is so valuable to the one sweeping the floor, we have to look closer at what is actually stamped on the metal itself. We have to return to the temple courtyard, to the denarius held in, the sunlight, and to a single Greek word that changes how you read every transaction in the Bible. The place to look is the text of Mark, chapter 12. Verse 16. Jesus is still standing in the temple courtyard. He is still holding the heavy Roman denarius. The Pharisees are waiting for him to commit treason. And he asks them, "Whose likeness and inscription is this?" The word your English Bible translates as likeness or image is the Greek ikon. It appears 23 times in the New Testament. And its historical meaning is much heavier than a simple portrait. They ask a rabbi from Nazareth a question about taxes. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? It is a brilliantly lethal question. In the ancient world, an icon was a physical representation of an absent authority. When a Roman emperor conquered a new territory, he would erect massive stone statues, his icons, in the city squares. The statue communicated a clear message to the conquered people. I am not here physically, but my icon is here, which means this space belongs to me. Caesar stamps his icon into silver to claim jurisdiction over the economy. But the Greek translation of the Old Testament, the Septuagint, uses this exact same word in a passage every Jewish man in that courtyard would have had memorized since childhood. Genesis chapter 1. Verse 27, so God created man in his own image, in his own icon. That single root word changes the entire conversation. In the dirt of Eden, the Creator did not stamp his profile into cold silver. He stamped it into dust. He breathed into the mud, and the mud became a living mirror of his authority. If realizing how these ancient words connect is shifting how you read the text, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So Jesus hands the coin back. Say yes. And he loses the crowd. Say no. And Rome will crucify him for treason before the sun goes down. He tells them to give to Caesar what bears Caesar's icon. Let the emperor have his medal. Let him have his tax. But the implication of the second half of his sentence is staggering. Give to God what bears God's icon. This response is not a clever political dodge. It is a theological earthquake. Jesus is looking at men who have allowed the empire to dictate their worth, and he is reminding them of their original minting. Rome can have its currency. Rome can claim the silver in your pocket. But Rome cannot claim the human being holding the silver, because the human being bears the icon of a higher king. You do not belong to the system that taxes you. Your value is not determined by the economy you live in. It is determined by the image you bear. But the denarius in the temple is only one side of the coin. The second piece of silver surfaces miles away. And it doesn't come from a money changer's table. Capernaum, the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee. The air smells of salt and drying linen nets. Men approach Peter in the dirt streets. They are not Roman soldiers. They are temple tax collectors. They want the didrachma, the annual half-shekel required from every Jewish male to maintain the sanctuary in Jerusalem. The rabbi does not panic. He asks them to show him the coin used for the tax. A hand reaches into a pouch. Does your teacher not pay the tax? Peter says yes. He walks into the house. But before Peter can speak, Jesus intercepts him with a question. From whom do kings of the earth take toll or tax? From their sons? Or from others? From others? Peter answers. Then the sons are free. The temple is the house of God. Jesus is the Son. The Son does not pay rent in his own Father's house. But Jesus refuses to let a tax become a stumbling block. He issues a command. He tells Peter to walk down to the sea, to cast a hook, to take the first fish that comes up. Peter walks to the water. He casts the line. The surface breaks. The line pulls taut. He drags a thrashing. Wet fish onto the smooth stones. He kneels in the damp sand. He forces open the gasping jaws. There, resting behind the sharp teeth, is a single coin, a silver stater, a tetradrachma, exactly enough to pay the temple tax for 2 men. This is not a magic trick meant to show off divine power. It is a visual demonstration of a completely different economy. Rome demands money under the threat of a sword. The temple hierarchy demands money under the threat of religious exclusion. But the kingdom of God operates on a different frequency. The earth itself yields what the king requires.